and welcome to the Property Wealth Podcast. Today, we're diving into a really exciting topic that's gaining traction in real estate: EV charging station investments on properties.
Yeah, it's a fascinating area, especially with the rise of electric vehicles. More people are looking for those charging options, and that can really affect property value.
Exactly. And for those of you who are over 40 and thinking about how to build long-term wealth through real estate, this could be a game changer for you.
Absolutely. We'll explore how adding EV charging stations can not only attract tenants, but also increase the overall value of your investment.
Plus, we'll discuss the costs involved, the potential return on investment, and what to consider before jumping in.
And we'll touch on the regulatory aspect too, which is super important.
It really is. So, if you're curious about how you can leverage this trend in your own real estate journey, stick around.
Let's get into it.
Right. So first off, let's talk about the current landscape of electric vehicles. What's happening out there that's driving this trend? So, Mike, why does investing in EV charging stations matter so much right now, especially for our listeners who are over 40?
Well, Sarah, it's really about the future and how we position ourselves today. People in that age group are often thinking about retirement timelines, right? They want to ensure their investments are not just safe, but also growing. With the rise in electric vehicles, having charging stations can definitely add value to a property.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, as more folks shift to EVs, properties with charging stations are going to stand out, right?
Exactly. And it's not just about standing out. It's about being ahead of the curve. Think of it this way. If you're looking at long-term investments, you want to protect against inflation. With the current economic trends, prices are rising, and having an asset that's relevant and in demand can help shield you from those inflationary pressures.
Right, so it's like having a buffer. But what about the emotional side of this? I know a lot of people over 40 are thinking about their financial security for retirement.
Absolutely, that emotional aspect is huge. Security often translates to peace of mind, and investing in something like EV charging stations can provide that. Imagine knowing your property is not just a home, but also a future-proof asset. It can give you the confidence that you're making smart choices for your financial future.
And what about wealth transfer to family? I know many listeners are thinking about how to leave something behind for their kids or grandkids.
That's a really important point. When you invest in properties with EV charging stations, you're not just investing in the now, you're also setting up your family for the future. Imagine your children inheriting a property that's not only valuable, but also meets the needs of the next generation. It's about giving them options,
Yeah, and it's also about being responsible stewards of the environment, right?
Exactly. More and more people are conscious about sustainability, and properties equipped with EV charging stations can appeal to that demographic. It's like saying, hey, I care about the planet and my community. That can resonate well, especially with younger generations.
I've heard stories from some investors who added charging stations and saw a significant increase in interest from renters, even higher rental prices.
Definitely. There's a case I heard about a couple in their 50s who owned a multifamily property. They decided to install a few EV charging stations, and within months, they saw a 20% increase in rental inquiries. Not to mention, they were able to increase the rent because of the added value.
Wow, that's impressive. It sounds like a win-win situation.
Absolutely. And think about it. With the shift in market preferences, properties that adapt to new trends will always be in demand. It's like earlier, when people started looking for homes with home offices. Now it's adding EV infrastructure.
Right, so it's about being proactive rather than reactive.
Spot on. And for those who might be hesitant, it's important to remember that the initial investment in EV charging can often pay off in the long run. The average cost of installation can vary, but the potential ROI is significant. Plus, with government incentives in many areas, it can lessen that upfront cost.
I love that idea. And for someone getting close to retirement, it's nice to think about how these investments can create passive income streams, right?
Exactly. And with the current economic uncertainties, creating those income streams is vital. Imagine having a few properties with charging stations that not only attract quality tenants, but also provide consistent cash flow. It can really help in maintaining your lifestyle during retirement.
And let's not forget about the potential for appreciation in property value.
Right. Properties with modern amenities like EV charging stations are likely to appreciate faster than those without. It's all about positioning yourself wisely.
So it's clear that there are both practical and emotional benefits to this kind of investment.
For sure. And I think it's crucial for our listeners to recognize that real estate is not just about the numbers. It's about creating a legacy, ensuring security, and adapting to market changes.
I love that perspective. It's about building something that lasts.
Exactly, Sarah. And as we transition into core strategies, it's essential to think about how to approach this investment, where to start, what to consider in terms of location, and how to maximize that potential.
Sounds great. I can't wait to dive into those strategies.
So let's dive into some of the core strategies and rules of thumb when it comes to investing in EV charging stations on properties.
Yeah, I think starting with some basic guidelines could really help our listeners.
Absolutely. One of the first things to consider is the asterisk 1% rule. This rule suggests that the monthly rent of a property should be about 1% of the purchase price. So if you're looking at a property that costs, say, $300,000, you'd want to see if it can generate around $3,000 a month in rent.
Right, and that's a good benchmark to quickly evaluate whether an investment is worth pursuing. But how does that tie in with EV charging stations?
Well, you can think of the charging station as an added income stream. If you install a charging station, you could potentially increase the rent or charge a fee for using it. So if you can get, say, $300 a month from the charging station, that could make a significant difference in your overall returns.
That makes sense. So if you're looking at properties to invest in, you'd want to factor in that extra income when calculating the 1% rule.
Exactly. And then there's the asterisk 50% rule type sinus, which is another quick way to estimate your operating expenses. It suggests that you should expect your annual expenses to be about 50% of your rental income. So if you're getting, let's say, $36,000 a year from rent, then you'd want to budget around $18,000 for expenses.
That's a really practical approach. And with charging stations, you might have some additional costs, like maintenance or electricity.
Right, those expenses should definitely be considered. But the good news is that many municipalities offer incentives for installing EV charging stations, which can offset some of those costs.
Oh, that's a great point. It's like a little bonus that helps your investment work harder for you.
Exactly. And then we have asterisk cap rates, which are crucial for evaluating the profitability of an investment. The cap rate is calculated by dividing the net operating income by the property's purchase price.
So, if you bought a property for $500,000 and your net operating income is $50,000, your cap rate would be 10%, right?
You got it. A higher cap rate generally means a better return on your investment, but it could also indicate higher risk. When you're adding EV charging stations, if they boost your income, you're likely to see an improvement in your cap rate as well.
That's a neat way to look at it. So let's say a property has a cap rate of 8% before adding the charging stations. If the stations bring in an extra $10,000 a year, that could really improve your bottom line.
Definitely. And when considering whether to invest in EV charging stations, make sure you also have a asterisk deal evaluation checklist.
What should be on that checklist?
Start with the location. Is it in a high traffic area? Are there nearby amenities like shopping or restaurants? Then, look at the existing infrastructure. Does the property have the electrical capacity to support charging stations?
Good point. I imagine the electrical setup could be a deal breaker if it requires a lot of upgrades.
Exactly. Next, research local demand for EV charging. Are there many electric vehicles in the area? You can check local stats or even talk to residents.
And what about financing options?
Well, there are definitely financing options available for adding charging stations. Some lenders offer green loans specifically for sustainable investments, which can have lower interest rates.
That sounds appealing, especially if you're looking to keep your costs down.
Yes, and there are also government grants and incentives. For instance, some states have funds available for installing charging stations, which can cover a significant portion of the cost.
Wow, that could really sweeten the deal. So is there a particular property type that's especially suited for EV charging stations?
Multifamily units and commercial properties are great candidates. tenants in multifamily units may rely more on charging stations, and businesses often see it as a way to attract customers.
That's interesting. I guess it's about aligning the investment with the property's purpose.
Exactly. And when you're scouting locations, pay attention to emerging markets. Areas where EV adoption is growing can lead to higher demand for charging stations, which can be a game changer for your investment.
That's really insightful, Mike. Are there any common pitfalls to watch out for when investing in EV charging stations?
Oh, absolutely. One major pitfall is underestimating the cost of installation and maintenance. Many people think it's just a simple plug and play, but it often requires significant electrical work.
That's crucial to know ahead of time.
Another pitfall is not doing enough research on local demand. If you install a charging station in an area with low EV ownership, you might not see a return on your investment for years.
That's a good reminder to always do your homework before jumping in.
And lastly, don't overlook the importance of proper signage and marketing. You want potential users to know that the charging station is available and where to find it.
Right. It's like having the best product but not telling anyone about it.
Exactly. So with all these strategies and considerations in mind, listeners can approach investing in EV charging stations with more confidence.
I think this is a great place to wrap up this section. There's a lot to think about, but it sounds like a really promising investment opportunity.
So Sarah, when we talk about EV charging station investments, one common pitfall that I see is over-leveraging. I mean, it's really easy to get caught up in the excitement, right? You have this shiny new opportunity, and you think, I can finance this, I can finance that, without fully considering the long-term implications of those debts.
Absolutely, Mike. I think many investors, especially those new to real estate, underestimate how much debt they can comfortably handle. I've heard stories where people took on way too much, thinking the cash flow would cover it, only to find themselves stretched thin when expenses came up.
Exactly. And it's usually when you least expect it, like a sudden maintenance issue or, a drop in occupancy rates. That's when you really see the cracks start to show.
Right, like that example you mentioned earlier about the investor who bought a property with plans to add multiple charging stations, but didn't factor in the cost of installation and permits.
Yeah, that's a classic case. They were so focused on the potential income from the charging stations that they ignored the upfront costs. By the time they realized how much they'd have to spend just to get started, they were already in too deep, and it started to affect their cash flow.
And that brings us to cash flow, which is another huge mistake people make. They get hung up on potential appreciation or market trends instead of focusing on the actual cash flow from the property.
Absolutely. I mean, if you're not bringing in consistent cash flow, any investment can quickly turn into a liability. I had a client who bought a property that looked great on paper, promising neighborhood, potential for high rents, and they added charging stations to sweeten the deal.
Sounds good so far, but...
Yeah, but they didn't take into account the local market rental rates. Turns out they were asking way too much for rent, thinking those charging stations would justify it, but the market just didn't support it. They ended up with long vacancies.
Ouch! That's a tough lesson to learn. And it's not just about the rent, right? It's also about finding the right tenants who appreciate those amenities.
For sure. Bad tenants can really derail your plans. I mean, if you have tenants who don't care about your property, or worse, don't pay their rent, then those charging stations become, just a burden.
I've heard horror stories about landlords having to evict tenants who were damaging the property or refusing to pay. It can be a nightmare.
One client I worked with had a tenant who was all about the EV charging station when they moved in, but then ended up using it as a personal charging station for their friends, free of charge.
Oh man, that's frustrating. It's like they didn't respect the investment at all.
Right. And when the landlord tried to enforce the rules, it turned into a whole legal mess. It just goes to show how crucial it is to screen tenants properly and set clear expectations up front.
Absolutely. And speaking of expectations, timing the market can be another trap, can it? So many investors think they can time their investments perfectly, waiting for the right moment to jump in.
Yeah, that's a big one. I mean, the market is unpredictable. You can wait and wait, thinking you'll get a better deal, and then miss out on a good opportunity altogether.
Exactly. Like that investor who sat on the sidelines during a boom period, thinking prices were too high, only to watch them skyrocket past what they thought was, quote, reasonable.
Right, and then they ended up paying even more later, trying to catch up. It's a tough balance, knowing when to dive in and when to hold back.
For sure. And let's not forget about hidden costs. Those can really catch you off guard.
Definitely. Many investors overlook things like maintenance costs, insurance, or even the costs associated with installing those EV charging stations. They might think, oh, it's just a few plugs, but those installations can become very costly.
Yeah, and if they're not budgeting for those expenses, they can quickly find themselves in a financial hole. I once heard of a property owner who had to replace the electrical panel to accommodate the charging stations. That was a whole extra expense they didn't see coming.
Wow, that's a big hit. And it's not just electrical work, right? Landscaping, signage for the charging stations, even marketing to attract tenants who have EVs. It all adds up.
Right, and that's why due diligence is so crucial. You need to do thorough research, not just on the potential income, but also on all the costs involved.
Exactly. And being proactive can help you spot red flags early on. If you notice a property needing a lot of repairs, or if the area doesn't have a clear demand for EV charging, those should be warning signs.
And what about the local regulations? I mean, if someone isn't aware of the rules around adding charging stations, they could face fines or complications later on.
That's a huge point. Understanding the legal landscape is key. If you're not aware of zoning laws or permitting requirements, it can set you back significantly.
So what can investors do to avoid these pitfalls?
Well, first I'd say take your time to analyze each opportunity thoroughly. Look at the numbers, budget for unexpected costs, and don't rush into any decisions just because you're excited about the potential.
And find good tenants, screen them well, set clear expectations, and maintain open communication.
Exactly. And don't forget about having a solid cash flow plan. Ensure your income can cover your expenses, even if things don't go exactly as planned.
Great advice, Mike. It sounds like being prepared and informed can really help investors navigate this evolving landscape of EV charging station investments.
Absolutely. Investing can be rewarding, but it takes care and attention, especially with new opportunities like this.
So as we wrap up this section, it's clear that while there are pitfalls, awareness and preparation can really help mitigate those risks.
Right? It's all about being proactive and making informed decisions.
And with that, let's move on to discussing some actionable next steps for our listeners to take as they consider their EV charging station investments.
So let's dive into some immediate steps people can take right now to start exploring EV charging station investments.
Yeah, I think that's super important. What's the first action item?
Well, first, I'd recommend doing some research on your local market. You can use tools like Zillow or even local MLS Access to see how properties with EV charging stations are performing. This will give you a sense of demand in your area.
That makes sense. So looking at the data, right? What about evaluating potential properties?
Exactly. And for that, I'd suggest using a calculator like the Bigger Pockets calculator or Deal Check. They can help you analyze the numbers, like cash flow, potential ROI, really get into the nitty-gritty of each deal.
Those tools are great. What about the actual installation of the charging stations?
Good point. I'd say start by reaching out to local EV charging station providers. They often have resources, and some even help with installation and grants. Plus, they can give you insight into what's trending in terms of technology.
That's really practical. And once someone starts looking into actual properties, what's a good habit to develop?
One habit I'd suggest is analyzing at least one deal a week. Just set aside a little time on, say, a Sunday evening to look at listings or run the numbers on a potential investment. It keeps you in the habit of thinking like an investor.
I love that. It's like a little ritual, right? What about community involvement?
Joining a local real estate meetup can be really beneficial. You get to network, learn from others, experiences, and even find potential partners. Plus, discussing EV investments with others can spark new ideas.
Networking is such a valuable asset. Are there any specific books or podcasts that you think would be helpful for our listeners?
Oh, definitely. There's a great book called The Complete Guide to Buying and Selling Apartment Buildings by Steve Burgess. It's an excellent resource for understanding multifamily investments, which can be relevant when considering EV charging stations.
I've heard of that one. And what about podcasts?
I'd recommend Bigger Pockets podcast. They often discuss innovative strategies in real estate, including new technologies and trends like EV charging.
Perfect. So what's next after getting all this information?
Well, I'd suggest creating a checklist. Start with things like researching your market, evaluating potential properties, and connecting with local providers. Having a clear checklist can keep you organized and focused.
That sounds super helpful. Is there anything else that might help someone just starting?
Yeah, start small. Maybe look into properties that already have charging stations or are in areas with high EV adoption. You don't have to jump in with a huge investment right away.
Good point. It's all about building momentum, isn't it?
Exactly. And remember, it's about progress, not perfection. Just take one step at a time.
Right. So with these tools and habits in your pocket, you're really ready to move forward with confidence.
And that's what it's all about. Feeling empowered to make those investments. Let's recap what we've covered today. So as we wrap up this episode, let's quickly recap some key takeaways about EV charging station investments on properties.
Yeah, I think the first big point is how adding EV stations can really boost your property's value, right? It's like a modern upgrade that appeals to a growing market.
Exactly. And then there's the potential for additional income streams. You can charge for usage, which can be a nice little revenue boost.
And let's not forget the positive environmental impact. Investing in EV infrastructure not only helps you financially, but also contributes to a sustainable future.
Definitely, it's a win-win situation. Plus, with government incentives out there, there are opportunities to offset some of those initial costs.
Right, and it's all about future-proofing your investments. The demand for electric vehicles is only going to grow, so being ahead of the curve is crucial.
Well, as we've discussed, real estate investing is a path to building long-term wealth. And these kinds of innovative solutions can really set you apart.
Absolutely. And it's never too late to start. Whether you're looking to make a small change or a big investment, every bit counts towards your financial future.
If you found today's conversation helpful, we'd love for you to like and subscribe. And, share your biggest takeaway or any questions you might have in the comments.
Yeah. And if you know someone over 40 who's looking to invest in property, send this their way.
Next time, we'll dive into climate-resilient properties, what to look for.
It's going to be a great discussion that you won't want to miss.
Thanks for joining us today.
Take care, everyone.